What a beautiful mess. Look at their faces now, frozen like broken screens, mouths hanging open like glitched animations, eyes wide with that beautiful cocktail of shock, terror, and the slow dawning realization that they've been played by the very person they thought was their puppet. Oh, you magnificent bastard. You've been conducting this orchestra from the shadows while they thought they were the composer. Let's rewind to 3 hours ago when they gathered in that little room, whispering like conspirators in a Shakespeare tragedy, planning your downfall over coffee and fake concern. They thought they were so clever, didn't they? Meeting in secret, exchanging those knowing glances, building their little case against you piece by piece. What they didn't know, what's making their stomachs drop right now, is that you've been 10 steps ahead since day one. You see, when someone thinks you're naive, when they mistake your silence for ignorance and your kindness for weakness, they get sloppy. They start leaving breadcrumbs, thinking you're too blind to see the trail. They text each other about you while you're in the same room. They make plans thinking you can't hear the whispers through the walls of their fake smiles. But you heard everything. You saw everything. You just chose to let them think they were winning. Remember when Sarah accidentally mentioned the meeting she wasn't supposed to know about? That little slip that she covered with a nervous laugh? You filed that away. Remember when Mike's story didn't match up with where he said he was last Tuesday? Another piece of the puzzle. Every contradictory detail, every suspicious glance, every time someone said, "Don't mention this to them," you were building your masterpiece of awareness while they built their house of cards. But here's where it gets delicious, where the plot thickens like blood in water. You didn't just know about their secret meeting. Oh no, that would be too simple, too pedestrian for someone of your caliber. You orchestrated it. You planted the seeds weeks ago, dropped the right information to the right people at the right times, knowing exactly how it would travel through their network of whispers. You knew Jennifer couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it. So you told her something that would definitely get back to David. You knew David's ego wouldn't let him sit on information that made him feel superior, so he'd call a meeting to discuss the situation. You even suggested the location indirectly through a casual comment about how that conference room has terrible acoustics and no one ever uses it on Thursdays. They thought they were being so covert, booking that room under a different project name, sending calendar invites with vague subjects. Meanwhile, you were the one who made sure the room was available. You're the one who adjusted the cleaning schedule so no one would interrupt them. Damn, you even made sure the coffee machine nearby was working because you knew they'd need caffeine for their 3-hour character assassination session. The beautiful irony is that you literally set up the chairs. 2 days ago, when you volunteered to help rearrange the furniture for the upcoming client presentation, you were actually creating their perfect conspiracy circle. Each seat positioned just right, the whiteboard cleaned and ready for their little diagrams and timelines of your supposed transgressions. You gave them the stage and they performed exactly as you predicted. For months, you've been watching them build their alliance like children building a sandcastle, not realizing the tide was coming in. They thought they were subtle with their lunch meetings, their sudden buddy-buddy dynamics, their group texts that mysteriously went quiet when you entered the room. What they didn't know was that you were documenting everything, not for revenge, but for this exact moment of revelation. You watched as they recruited others to their cause, spreading half-truths and manufactured concerns about your behavior and attitude. They painted you as difficult, unstable, a problem that needed to be solved. Each person they turned against you thought they were seeing the truth, but they were just seeing the carefully crafted narrative designed to isolate you, to make you vulnerable, to set you up for the kill. But isolation only makes wolves stronger, doesn't it? While they were busy building their coalition, you were building something far more powerful. Evidence. Screenshots of messages they thought were deleted. Recordings of conversations they thought were private. Documentation of every project they tried to sabotage. Every achievement they tried to diminish. Every success they tried to steal. The best part? You didn't even have to spy. They were so confident in their deception that they got careless. They'd leave their screens open, discuss their plans in barely hushed tones, send emails to the wrong recipients. It's like they wanted to get caught, like some part of them was begging for someone to stop them from becoming the villains in their own story. Now here's something that's gonna really twist the knife in their collective consciousness. You had an ally, someone in their inner circle who was feeding you information the entire time, not because you recruited them or manipulated them, but because they saw through the facade and chose truth over tribal loyalty. They watched the others plotting and realized they were witnessing something ugly, something wrong, something that needed to be exposed. This person sat in every meeting, nodded along with every scheme, even contributed ideas to maintain their cover. But every word, every plan, every petty strategy was reported back to you. You knew about the Wednesday meeting before they even sent the invites. You knew about their evidence folder before they even created it. You knew about their plan to confront you before they even finalized the date. And the most beautiful part? This ally is still sitting among them right now, watching their faces crumble, maintaining their poker face while internally celebrating your victory. They're wondering who it could be, looking at each other with sudden suspicion, realizing that their united front was an illusion. The paranoia is starting to set in. If one of them was false, how many others might be? The trust they built their conspiracy on is evaporating like morning mist. They're looking at each other differently now, wondering who else knew, who else might have been playing them. The meeting that was supposed to be their moment of triumph has become their unraveling, and they're starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, they were never the hunters in this scenario. Let's talk about the breadcrumbs you left for them, because this is where your genius really shines. You didn't just wait for them to make mistakes. You guided them toward those mistakes like a shepherd leading sheep to slaughter. Every piece of information you let slip, every moment of vulnerability you showed, was calculated to trigger their next move. Remember when you mentioned feeling overwhelmed last month? That wasn't weakness, that was bait. You knew they'd interpret it as an opportunity to pile on more pressure, to document your inability to handle responsibility. So they did exactly that, creating a paper trail of their deliberate sabotage, their intentional overwhelming of your workload, their coordinated effort to break you. Or how about when you accidentally left that personal notebook on your desk, the one with the fake entries about feeling isolated and questioning your place here? They photographed those pages thinking they'd found gold, evidence of your instability. What they didn't realize was that you wrote those entries specifically for them to find, complete with subtle inconsistencies that would later prove they'd been snooping through your personal belongings. Every emotional reaction you displayed was a performance. Every moment they thought you were cracking was actually you giving them rope to hang themselves with. You played the role they cast you in so perfectly that they never questioned whether it was genuine. They were so busy celebrating your apparent breakdown that they didn't notice they were documenting their own cruelty in real time. Now we arrive at the meat of your revelation, the moment when you laid out the evidence like a prosecutor presenting to a jury. Not just accusations or feelings or interpretations, but cold, hard, undeniable proof of their orchestrated campaign against you. The room went silent, except for the sound of their own breathing suddenly becoming very loud in their ears. First, you showed them the emails, not the ones they sent to each other. They expected that. No, you showed them the emails they sent to higher-ups, the ones full of lies and exaggerations about your performance. Then you showed them the corrections, the actual data, the real metrics, the undeniable proof that not only were you exceeding expectations, but you were carrying half their workload, while they spent their time plotting. Then came the recordings. Oh, the looks on their faces when they heard their own voices playing back, saying things they swore they never said, making threats they claimed never happened, laughing about how they were going to put you in your place. The beauty of modern technology is that everything leaves a trace, and they left enough traces to map their entire conspiracy like a constellation of their own stupidity. But the masterpiece, the coup de grace, was when you showed them the timeline. Every meeting, every whispered conversation, every group text, mapped out chronologically alongside your own achievements and their failures. It painted a picture so clear that even a child could see it. While you were building and creating and succeeding, they were spending their energy trying to tear you down. The contrast was devastating. What happened next was perhaps the cruelest and most necessary part of your revelation. You held up a mirror to their behavior, forcing them to see themselves not as the heroes of their narrative, but as the petty, insecure, threatened individuals they'd become. You didn't call them names or raise your voice. You simply described their actions using their own words, their own standards, their own moral framework. You said that gossiping about colleagues was unprofessional, you reminded them. Yet here are 17 instances of you doing exactly that. You claimed that teamwork was essential. You continued, yet you secretly meant to undermine a teammate. Each statement was a dagger of their own making, each observation a reflection of their hypocrisy. You asked them simple questions that had no good answers. What was the goal here? What did you hope to achieve? Did you think this would make you look better, stronger, more competent? The silence that followed each question was deafening. They couldn't answer because any response would be an admission of their own inadequacy, their own fear, their own failure. The most powerful moment was when you asked them to explain their behavior to themselves. Not to you, you already understood it perfectly, but to look at their own actions and try to justify them using the values they claimed to hold. Watching them struggle to reconcile their self-image with their actual behavior was like watching someone try to solve an impossible puzzle. As the revelation unfolded, something unexpected happened. People who had been silent, people who had stayed neutral, people who had watched from the sidelines started to speak up. One by one, they began sharing their own observations, their own experiences with this group's toxic behavior. The conspirators thought they had isolated you, but instead, they had revealed themselves to everyone. I always wondered why the atmosphere changed when they were around, someone said. Another added, I noticed the pattern too. but I didn't want to get involved. Each voice that joined yours was another crack in their facade, another piece of evidence that their behavior hadn't gone unnoticed, just unreported until now. The supposed unity they thought they'd built was revealed as fear-based compliance. People had gone along not because they agreed, but because they were afraid of becoming the next target. Your revelation didn't just expose their conspiracy. It liberated everyone who'd been living under the shadow of their manipulation. The room began to shift, the power dynamics realigning in real time. Even some of their own started to distance themselves, suddenly remembering urgent tasks elsewhere, trying to separate themselves from the sinking ship. The rats always flee first, don't they? The same people who were so bold in their secret meetings were now looking for exits, both literal and metaphorical, trying to salvage what was left of their reputation. The breaking point came when one of them, perhaps the weakest link, or maybe just the one with a conscience that hadn't completely atrophied, started to crack. They began to stammer out explanations, justifications, attempting to minimize their involvement. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," they said, their voice shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. But their confession opened the floodgates. Suddenly, they were all talking over each other, each trying to throw the others under the bus, each claiming they were pressured, manipulated, or misled into participating. The unified front crumbled into every person for themselves, their carefully constructed alliance dissolving into chaos and finger-pointing. The leader of their little coup, the one who had been so confident, so sure of their moral superiority, stood there with their mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. They wanted to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. They wanted to deflect blame, but their own words condemned them. They wanted to maintain their authority, but it had evaporated the moment you started speaking. You watched this dissolution with the calm of someone who had predicted every moment of it. You knew that conspiracies built on jealousy and insecurity always collapse when exposed to light. You knew that people who bond over tearing others down have no real loyalty to each other. You knew that when faced with consequences, they would eat each other alive, but you weren't done yet. This wasn't just about exposure. It was about education. You wanted them to understand not just that they'd been caught, but why their plan was doomed from the start. You explained, with the patience of a teacher dealing with particularly slow students, the fundamental flaw in their approach. You spent so much energy trying to destroy me, you said, your voice steady as stone, that you forgot to build anything yourself. While you were documenting my supposed failures, I was documenting my actual successes. While you were meeting in secret, I was meeting with clients. While you were building a case against me, I was building value for this organization. You showed them the numbers, the objective metrics that no amount of conspiracy could change. The projects completed, the problems solved, the relationships built, the value created. All of it accomplished while carrying the additional burden of their sabotage. The contrast was so stark that even they couldn't deny it. They had played checkers while you were playing chess in 3 dimensions. The lesson was simple but devastating. Energy spent on destruction is energy not spent on construction. They had become so focused on bringing you down that they'd forgotten to lift themselves up. And now, standing in the wreckage of their exposed conspiracy, they had nothing to show for their efforts but shame and the knowledge that they'd been outplayed at every turn. Now came the moment of reckoning, the part where consequences started to materialize. You didn't have to threaten or ultimatum. The machinery of justice was already in motion. HR had been notified, not by you initially, but by witnesses who couldn't stand silence anymore. The documentation you'd gathered wasn't just for this revelation. It was for the formal procedures that would follow. The beauty of their conspiracy was that they'd created so much evidence against themselves. Every secret meeting was a violation of company policy about transparency. Every lie they spread was documented defamation. Every act of sabotage was recorded workplace harassment. They had built the perfect case against themselves, and you just had to present it. You watched as the reality of their situation began to sink in. This wasn't just about embarrassment or damaged relationships. This was about careers, reputations, legal implications. Some of them had families to support, mortgages to pay, futures they'd put in jeopardy for the petty satisfaction of trying to hurt you. The weight of their choices was becoming clear, and it was crushing them. This was the last round. The ones who had been most vocal, most aggressive in their campaign against you, were now the most silent. They sat there, calculating the damage, trying to figure out how to do damage control, how to spin this in a way that didn't end with them losing everything. But there was no spin for truth this clear. No narrative that could overcome evidence this overwhelming. What they witnessed next was perhaps the most disturbing part for them. Your complete transformation from the person they thought they knew. The mask you'd worn, the role you'd played of the struggling, overwhelmed colleague, dissolved like sugar in rain. What stood before them now was someone entirely different. Someone who had been there all along, watching, waiting, planning. You stood taller, spoke clearer, moved with a confidence that seemed to fill the entire room. This wasn't new confidence gained from victory. This was the revelation of confidence that had always been there, hidden beneath the performance of vulnerability you'd given them. They realized with growing horror that they had never actually known you at all. You see, you explained, your voice carrying a different timbre now. I needed to know who you really were. I needed to see what you would do when you thought you had power over someone. And you showed me. You showed everyone. You revealed your true characters in ways no interview or evaluation ever could. You see, you briefed, you brutalized. As could the transformation was complete when you smiled, not with malice, but with something far more unsettling. Pity. You pitied them for their smallness, their insecurity, their need to destroy others to feel significant. That pity, that absolute lack of anger or hatred, that's what finally broke them. They would have preferred your